Next, we'll move to making tentative conclusions. And really, this is making provisional meaning statements as we're making sense of the data. And the process involves different strategies, a holistic understanding, and sometimes computer assistance. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. So let's look at some strategies for making tentative conclusions. And these are different ways to draw your conclusions. We can use clustering, counting, plausibility, metaphors, and subsuming particulars into the general. If we look at clustering, we're using a matrix or a network as far as our previous conversations, and we're trying to clump or integrate information into patterns or themes. And then we're going to identify those patterns and themes and start to make conclusions from that. And then if we look at subsuming particulars into the general, we're going to collapse several categories into one or more general categories. We're going to stand back and find a more generic label for a number of the discrete categories. So we're kind of taking a step back in both ways. So let's look at an example. If we observe kids' behavior on playgrounds and our behaviors are initially categorized as a bullying, aggression, rule infractions, or defying authority, we can subsume that these behaviors under a new label of antisocial behavior. So again, we're kind of looking at a bigger scope idea of what we're seeing there. So we're taking the three categories that we've noticed here and making one larger category that fits all of them. Next, we can look at counting. And counting sometimes reveals special patterns. Really, what we're looking at is why something is happening. For instance, why is there irregular participation in a fitness program? So we're noticing that certain people or there's an irregular participation by several different people, right? And then we look at it a little bit more depth. We notice that 70% of them noted lack of child care. So we're taking a little bit deeper look into the patterns by doing some counting of why and how. I like the next one, which is plausibility. And this is just thinking about what makes the most sense. Sometimes it's using your intuition to talk about what feels right. But it's also a very logical aspect, is like, what would make sense here? Following through the logical progression, what is happening, and really why is it happening? So I also like making the metaphors. So a metaphor is a literary device used to compare two things that are similar. For example, we talk about the empty nest is when children leave the home, much like when baby birds fly away. And so different instances, you can use similar metaphors to help you better understand a scenario or an object or a situation. And then we look at overall a holistic understanding of everything. Findings are tied to overarching explanations in life. We try to determine the construct or broader applications of patterns that emerge from the data. So again, taking that big step back. We strive for tentative conclusions to answer our research questions, especially if it's applied research. So overall, when we take that big step, what are we really looking at and why is it the way it is? If we're looking at basic research, our conclusion should be tied to development of theory. So we're looking at what theory can we tie to this conclusion that we're making if we're looking at some basic research ideas. And we can also look at using computers to help us understand, organize, and analyze our data. So there are a variety of different programs, softwares out there, and there's a couple I've listed here. But overall, you need to remember, computers cannot replace the human intuition and creativity. It can't replace our ingenuity in how we look at an abstract problem and help organize and solve that problem. Overall, just know that computer assistance is available and can help in certain cases.